How's your homeschool year going? Let's chat about September. Hello, this is Rachel from 7 and All. I am a second generation homeschooler raising 3 young boys. We are bilingual homeschoolers, and every month I try to come on here and chat with you guys and give just a little recap of how homeschool is going lately, sometimes share some of my reflections along this ever-changing journey with you. Now, I feel like this recap will probably be a little shorter than most because I feel like nothing really crazy happened this month, which we're all gonna call that a good thing. Thank you guys so much for all your comments and encouragement and prayers. Last month I shared that in August my husband had a heart attack. Thankfully he has recovered, I think, the best that could be expected. He's had some follow-ups. He does have some long-term medication, and we're continuing to figure out exactly what that's going to look like, what the best plan is. We don't want this to happen again. No more excitement of this kind, ideally. So thank you so much for all your comments about that. Yes, that was a very scary time for us as a family, very scary for me as a wife with all these small children. But I'm so thankful for God's faithfulness through it all and through our community showing up and just showing how much they truly, genuinely care about our family and take care of us even in scary moments. But I am thankful for quite a calm September after August. Now, for the actual homeschool update, my major reflection on homeschool is I just love this. I love this life. I love that I get to be there, that I get to be there for all of it. I'm so grateful for it. I know, not everyone gets to homeschool and not everyone gets to homeschool forever, but I do not take any of these days for granted. I truly cherish and enjoy this time with my kids. And yes, you're tired. You're tired sometimes when your baby was not sleeping very well because he decided to cut even more teeth. How many teeth can a baby have? I don't know. You're tired sometimes, but you're going to be tired no matter what. But the opportunity to do work that's worth doing with people that you just care about so much is wonderful, and I do cherish it. That's kind of my big reflection for the month is, yes, this is awesome and I love it. Yes, it's work. But I am so privileged to be able to to do a job that I love. I have a first grader and a 4-year-old pre-K student who turns 5 at the end of the year, and I've really been noticing with my little guy that he's starting to level up. I often see kind of almost a burst of developmental maturity as they start getting closer to their birthdays. And he's really showing a lot of engagement and a lot of growth in his little school routines. We don't do a long dragged out routine. We do short little lessons, but these short lessons are so effective, and I'm really seeing the fruit that they're producing. So we're continuing to use All About Reading Level 1 with him, and it's so cool to see him get it. CBC words, he is very good with CBC words now. So we're starting to move into some of the blends, some of the digraphs, TH and SH, getting in those consonant blends, and that's another, little hurdle. That's a step up for these little guys from CBC. But it's so cool that when you've already seen them master CBC, now you're like, hey, you can do this next hard thing. You can figure out this next hard thing, and we get to do this journey together. He's been marching right along in kindergarten math with confidence. So these are really the core bookwork we're doing each day. He also does handwriting, and I love his little attention to detail. It's actually really fun to see my boys interact over school and grow in their maturity in that way too. So this week, my little one did his handwriting page and he showed it to me, and I'm like, hey, you did a really good job. But actually his older brother noticed 2 letters where he went below the line, and he said, actually, you should redo these 2 letters because you went below the line. And my little one didn't show any resistance, didn't, have any drama. He was just, oh, yeah, I did. And erased it and wrote it again. And I'm like, I know, I'm a mom, I have some experience. I know that this happening doesn't mean that they're going to have wonderful, respectful interactions every day for the rest of their life. But I really love being able to see that, being able to see one helping the other to grow, and the other one also being totally willing to take that correction in hand, no drama, no fuss, and be like, oh yeah, I could do those letters better. And that they are doing it with each other instead of it coming from me. That's just such a gift, and I love seeing that little fruit of many small lessons along the way. Spanish remains a big part of all of our homeschool days. I shared last month that I developed a Spanish phonics workbook to use with my oldest, and I really feel like we're making some solid headway into reading in Spanish now. He's really growing in confidence, and volume 2 of that Spanish phonics workbook should be ready very soon. At the time when I'm filming this, I am so close to finishing it, and then I'm going to hand it off to my husband for proofreading, and hopefully we'll have that available on the website very soon. Also for Spanish, we've been going through Homeschool Languages, Spanish 2. We're a little ways into that, and I love this. I didn't think that this was necessarily going to be something our family needed, but using it, it's actually been amazing because we've raised our kids around Spanish. They understand Spanish very well, and I kind of expected and hoped that they would just pick up things like using pronouns correctly and conjugating verbs correctly. I hope that they would just pick that up from hearing it, but they just weren't really picking it up from hearing it. They were still making a lot of mistakes. They did not have the confidence to be changing verbs. They didn't really get it. I think, because the Spanish exposure they have is limited. It is limited to just my husband and myself, and not even 100%. So, for whatever reason, they haven't grasped that naturally. But that's not the only way to learn conjugation, right? And this gave me the brilliant and revolutionary idea of just explain it to them. Just explain, hey, caminar. We change the verb ending when we're using it with yo, when we're using it with tú, él, ella, ellos, all of these. We just change the verb ending. And suddenly, my son, my oldest, is conjugating so many verbs. And he's growing in confidence and in speed and in accuracy daily. So I can see all the foundation that we have laid through so much Spanish immersion. That definitely means that we're going through a resource like Homeschool Languages faster and with more confidence, I think. But it took a language like this saying, hey, how about you just explain and practice verb conjugation, to actually make me feel like, hey, we're actually really making progress, versus when I was just kind of waiting on immersion and hearing it to just pick up verb conjugation by osmosis. So I do want to encourage you, especially if you're in a bilingual journey, if your kids aren't just picking it up through immersion and osmosis, don't hesitate to just explain it to them. I was too intimidated, or I guess didn't think of it to think, oh, I could explain conjugation and changing verb endings to my child. But actually I could, and actually it worked, and it's showing so much effectiveness to take the time to explain. I feel like we have been very strong in our focus and faithfulness with Spanish lately. I've really been disciplining myself to speak Spanish a lot with the baby, more than I did with my first two when they were babies, because I wasn't yet very confident with it yet. And we've also been having a once a week Spanish class with a couple of other little friends. And I've been really glad that we've been able to do that regularly this past month, after the craziness of August was out of the way. Then as far as science, we are continuing to work through Sunlight Science A. And I would just say the more I use Sunlight Science, actually, the more I love it. So sometimes the more you use a curriculum, the more you're like, I'm feeling a little bored with this. But this has been one that's like, actually, the more I use it, the more I am appreciating how it all comes together and how much learning and retention I am seeing with my kids as we do it. In our history, which is following Junto Classical Sequence 1, we are currently on a science, kind of historical scientist unit. So we've had one on Galileo, and we're going into a week on studying Isaac Newton. Now, with my son and these history books, I am working on improving narration skills, and specifically improving coherent narration skills. He is a child who has always loved to listen to reading aloud, and he does remember a lot of what he hears in books, and I know that because it kind of comes out randomly, but we're working on being able to coherently produce what you remember from a story, which this is not something I'm saying I'm worried about at 6 years old. This is very developmentally normal to not necessarily have the most coherent flow as you're talking about a subject that you've learned about. This is a skill that needs to be built, and it's a very important skill to work on as a foundation for later writing skills. So when I notice these things, when I notice little areas where a child does need to work to improve, I don't let that make me worry or feel frustrated or upset. I just realize, hey, this is something we work on. And I know that if we work on it, that's when we're gonna see progress. So I use these things that I notice to inform my own habits and my own time. So as I'm noticing a need to work on building these coherent narration skills, being able to explain something that you've learned about, being able to tell a story in order, I just know, hey, that's something we're gonna work on. So with our work on Galileo, that is something that we worked on. We also worked a little bit on foundations of taking notes. I said, hey, we're gonna be talking about this Galileo at the end of this story. I'm gonna do a little bit of writing project with you on this, so let's take notes. Now, he doesn't know how to take notes yet, but I told him, hey, if I read something and you think that that is important and we should make a note of it, you tell me and I will stop and we'll take the notes, because he's not really at the level of writing where he knows how to spell what he wants to take notes of. But that worked very well, that he would stop me and say, oh, I think that's important. I said, he was born in Pisa, Italy. So he stopped me. I think that's important. Okay, we're gonna write down birthplace, Pisa, Italy. So getting that idea of what is important, what's worth taking notes on, and notes that we can later use as a foundation for narrations. And I'm gonna wrap this up with just a couple of read-alouds that we have been enjoying lately. I've been doing our chapter books before bedtime, and that's been working very, very well. We did Mrs. Piggle Wiggle a couple weeks ago. This one was quite a huge hit. This was actually the first book that my son asked me to reread multiple chapters of. This is an older book, one that I grew up with, very fun for kids. This is one that was brand new to me. I didn't even know the story at all. Anna Hibiscus is about a little Canadian African girl growing up in Africa. And my boys connected with this story so much. I think actually a lot of the story is very relatable to TCKs, to my own kids' experience of being, having their own multicultural background and growing up in Southeast Asia, but having parents who are from the US. It was very charming, very well done. Some good little character clashes and lessons as well with different personalities. Like, the people felt like real people in this book, and I appreciated that. Then we read The Light at Turn Rock, and I read this as a child, but it's a Sunlight book from my mom. I forgot that it's kind of a Christmas story, so you might want to read this one a little closer to Christmas, but it's a good one for also a little bit of discussion of character and patience and forgiveness, frustration, but another classic that we have enjoyed, and right now we are diving into The Wild Robot. All right, what has been a favorite read aloud that you have done in the last month? Let me know in the comments. We're going through a lot of books. I feel like I'm gonna need some suggestions. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.